Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers. Ernesto, we got a full episode this week. We're in the thick of it. We're in the Oscar season. From this episode and the next few after that, we're going to be diving into a whole bunch of Oscar nominations. We're doing the work and we're grinding through. Some of them are more enjoyable than others, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we're definitely in full Oscar coverage right now. I mean,
Oh yeah.
we've got, as far as our main reviews, we're going to be reviewing Nickel Boys, based on the historic reform school in Florida, the Dozer School for Boys, which was notorious for abusive treatments of students. It's the story of Elwood Curtis, a young African-American boy who is sent to the Nickel Academy after he is falsely accused of a crime during the 1960s. While he's there, he met a boy named Turner, and the two form a close relationship as they try to survive the horrors of the school and its corrupt administrators. It's the two-time Oscar nominee for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay, starring Ethan Harrisay, Brandon Wilson, Andre Lewis Taylor, written and directed by Ramel Ross. This is his feature-length directorial debut. It's also based on the 2019 Pulitzer Prize-winning novel The Nickel Boys from author Colson Whitehead. So we'll be doing a full review on that. We're also going to be reviewing international film I'm Still Here. It's a Brazilian film. On an afternoon in 1971, Rubens Paiva, a former congressman and outspoken critic of Brazil's newly instituted military dictatorship, was taken from his home in Rio de Janeiro by government officials, told nothing more than he must give a deposition to authorities, and disappeared. Adapted from his son Marcelo Rubens' memoir, this overwhelming, richly realized political drama from Walter Salles, The Motorcycle Diaries, stays tightly wedded to the perspective of Rubens' wife, Eunice, a shattering Fernanda Torres, who is in the search of truth about her husband and would stretch out for
Honestly,
decades.
I didn't proofread this one. I should have, because this one doesn't have it. Anyway, go on.
Yes, this is a devastating true story. I'm Still Here is exhilarating in its portrayal of human tenacity in face of justice. It's a three-time
this
Oscar.
description's throwing.
Yeah,
Sorry, this description is giving its own little personal anecdotes. I should have proofread that one. Anyway, go on.
It's okay. I forgive you. I love you, though. Three-time Oscar nominee, Best Picture, Best International Film, and Best Actress for Fernanda Torres, starring Fernanda Torres, Selton Mello, Fernanda Montenegro, directed by Walter Salles, written by Mario Hauser and Heiter Lorega, based on the 2014 memoir of the same name from Marcelo Rubens Paiva. I'm very excited to talk about these films, but we're going to be doing like a little mini short review on three other films in our What You're Watching section. So we're going to be talking about September 5, which is a historical drama that focuses on the 1972 Munich Olympic hostage crisis from the perspective of the ABC sports crew. The film highlights their transition from covering the Olympics to reporting on the hostage situation involving Israeli athletes, and showcases the intense and emotional experience of live broadcasting during a global tragedy. We're going to be talking about two of the international feature nominees. That's A Girl with a Needle, a film from Denmark. Copenhagen, 1919, a young worker finds herself unemployed and pregnant. She meets Dagmar, who runs an underground adoption agency. A strong connection grows, but her world shatters when she stumbles on the shocking truth behind her work. We're also going to be talking about The Seed of the Sacred Fig, a film from Germany. Investigating Judge Iman grapples with paranoia amid political unrest in Tehran. When his gun vanishes, he suspects his wife and daughters, imposing draconian measures that strain family ties as societal rules crumble. I actually didn't realize that this was a German film, considering
Yeah.
where it's based and in the language. So it's very interesting. That almost reminds me of Amelia Perez, a French film that's
Mhm.
based in Mexico in Spanish. So that's interesting. That's how they reach out that way. We don't really see that a lot in America,
No, no,
right?
we don't. Yeah, I mean, if anything, there might be. I feel like if anything close, there might be American films that feature like an all Latin cast, or
Yeah,
like even, but then again, it's Americanized in a way.
yeah,
Like Crazy Rich Asians has an all Asian cast, but they're mainly speaking English with a little bit of whatever language that they're speaking. I forgot the language that they were, which in that particular movie, uh but yeah, it's always Americanizing it for our audience to ingest, rather than like Amelia Perez and The Seed of a Sacred Fig. That's clearly not trying to pander to a German audience. It's trying to send its message, which is probably more important than anything else. Ernesto, I'll give you credit. I was not expecting you to read all the the
of
descriptions.
course I would. Why not?
Threw me off guard. Anyway, yeah. So as Ernesto just said, we have a lot to discuss here. But before that, before we dive into those 5 films that we'll be talking about, we kind of want to talk about the landscape so far since we last spoke on how the Oscars. Last time we spoke, we were talking about the nominations, and we even mentioned that Amelia Perez, specifically Amelia Perez, had 13 Oscar nominations, and how that film was getting a lot of praise unknowingly, even though the critics were loving it and the audience weren't really feeling it. There was a huge margin between like even the critics Rotten Tomato score and the audience Rotten Tomato score. And then all of a sudden, this particular situation happened. Do you mind pulling up the description there? Because I want to read it and make sure we don't get it wrong. There was a situation with the actress Carlos Sofia Gascon, who I guess in the midst of everything else had some backlash on some comments that she had said in the past, and that has resulted in there you go. So in September 2020, January, so this last month. Let me move this. This is in my way. No, I can't move it. Can you scroll down? There you go. That works. Okay. Yeah. So this event happened last month here, and so in January in 2025, resurfaced social media posts from Amelia Perez stars Carlos Sofia Gascon revealed offensive remarks about Muslims, George Floyd, and the diversity at the Oscars, leading to public backlash and her removal of the film's promotional activities. Despite issuing an apology and deleting her social media accounts, Gascon stated in a CNN Espanol interview that she would not withdraw from her Best Actress Oscar nomination, asserting that she had not committed any crimes, which I didn't know you can do that. I didn't know you can withdraw your nomination. Director Jacques Anadard, I probably pronounced that wrong, commended her comments, and Netflix distanced itself from Gascon, potentially impacting the film's awards prospects. So that is what's 100% what's happening right now. That the Oscars, I'm sorry, not the Oscars, Netflix has decided no longer. So all the nominations for the films are still there. It's not going anywhere. But Netflix has announced that they're not actively campaigning this film anymore to get more eyes on it. And this is typically what studios do when you're nominated for all these awards. You do this big Oscars push. A lot of actors, will start doing interviews and getting eyes on people who are the voters and all that stuff. But now Netflix, like, we're not putting any time and effort into promoting this film. And despite how we feel about it, which we were not the biggest fans of, I find that very interesting that they are going down this route. And like some cases, they could ignore all that stuff. They could ignore all of the backlash and be like, well, we still want to push this film. But instead, they're like probably looking at their PR stunt and be like, you know what? We don't want to get anywhere near that. We don't want to be quote unquote looking bad. So we're just going to distance ourselves from the whole thing. So yeah, I think and that before we get into some of the winners of some of the other award organizations that we'll get to in a second, I just find it interesting that like this whole thing transpired very quickly, and now it's potentially affecting Amelia Perez from winning potentially any award.
Yeah, what a weird way to go down.
Mhm.
Imagine being the second most nominated film and not winning a single one.
And honestly,
Oof.
I think that might happen.
It's very possible. Or maybe they'll get like I don't know. I don't even know which one you would give them because I really it just wasn't a good movie.
I mean, and let's talk about some of them. Let's go into the Critics' Choice Awards, which happened a few weeks ago, and we'll announce some of the winners as we are kind of looking at the landscape. So, Best Picture went to Anora, which I think was the biggest surprise. A lot of people thought it was going to be The Brutalist. A lot of people thought it was going to be even Amelia Perez, as it did in the Golden Globes for their respective categories. But no, it's a big surprise to everyone. The Best Picture film went to Anora. Best Actor went to Adrian Brody. Best Actress went to Demi Moore. Best Supporting Actor went to Carey Culkin. And then Best Supporting Actress went to Zoe Saldana, which was which she's been the favorite so far in the Supporting Actress category. Best Director, rightfully so, went to John M. Chu. Best Comedy was a tie, surprisingly. I know you can do that. I figured that just seems odd to me that will end in a tie. But Best Comedy went to A Real Pain and Deadpool and Wolverine.
I don't really agree with that. Like, come on. Like, you can't compare, like, just how complex A Real Pain is to Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, they can be enjoyed for different reasons, but I don't think,
yes.
I don't believe that. I just don't agree with that whatsoever. I think A Real Pain is on a whole other level compared to Deadpool Wolverine. Deadpool Wolverine is just like it's just a silly movie. Like A Real Pain is funny. It has so much depth. I don't know. You can listen to our review and hear about it, but that's like, I don't know. That's that's like a slap in the face to A Real Pain. I don't agree with that.
I think they're funny for different reasons. Like I laugh for different reasons on both of those movies. I don't think it holds the same stature to one another. Like I feel like they're not comparable at all. So anyway, they got tied for Best Comedy. Best Foreign Language Film went to Amelia Perez, and Best Animated Film went to The Wild Robot. And quickly, since it's already up on the screen, we'll talk about some of the TV wins. Best Drama went to Shogun. Best Comedy went to Hacks. Best Limited Series went to Baby Reindeer, and Best Animated Series went to X-Men 97, which I'm happy that the Critics' Choice recognizes animated television as well as animated film. Not a lot of award shows do that. So,
well, especially X-Men 97. The storytelling is just the depth of the storytelling is just so good.
Yeah, no, for sure. And honestly, so far any other award show that's been happening right now, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at Best Drama Shogun, Best Comedy Hacks, and then Best Limited Series is either gone to Baby Reindeer, or if that has already gotten through its award cycle for that particular award, then it's going to The Penguin. So, yeah, that's what's happening there. But yeah, I'm happy to see that The Wild Robot is getting some love because it definitely deserves it. The Golden Globes gave it to Flo. So now at this moment, Flo and The Wild Robot are kind of competing for the Oscar spot. Given how the award circuit is panning out, I do want to make a note that this, and even the article had stated like the voting process had already closed for the Critics' Choice Awards before all the drama that was going on with Carlos Sofia Gascon. So this was already determined before the drama went down. So Anora was most likely already still going to win Best Picture. So the drama did not affect Anora's winning.
Yeah.
But that being said, we'll move on to the next award show, which was the Directors Guild Award. And to a lot of people's surprise, the award did not go to Brady. I think it's Brady Corbett, who did The Brutalist, which a lot of people were expecting. He was a front runner. It actually went to Sean Baker, who directed Anora. And so that was a big surprise.
I agree with that. I mean, objectively, I think they're good. They're good in their own right, but I just felt I liked Honora better.
No, I agree. I mean, I think those two. I mean, each one of these movies. We'll talk about this in our Oscars predictions episode. How you approach these movies on a directorial standpoint is completely different. But at the end of the day, is how you tell that story, and that could be either through highlighted more in the writing than it is in the directing style. And yeah, I did enjoy Nora, and I think that was a well-deserved win for Sean Baker. Also, in the first-time director category, the award went to Remo Ross, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show for Nickel Boys. And then I forgot his name. I should look this up. But for best documentary went to Porcelain War. And for the director for that, I want to get his name in there real quick before Porcelain War. There we go. Nope. The director of that is Brendan Belomo and Salva Leo TV. I probably pronounced that wrong. I apologize. But it's the two gentlemen there, and the one with the dog. It was also in the film. Like he directed it, the film, as well as he featured himself in the film as well, which we'll be talking about some of the documentary features in a future episode.
Yep.
But yeah, so right now, of course, in the directing category, again, these are now, because they won in the Directors Guild of America Awards, now they are considered frontrunners. In addition to now, I mean, John M. Chu was not nominated for an Oscar. So that's sad in its own right. But I remember he referenced not being nominated at the Oscars in his Critics' Choice acceptance speech, which was kind of funny.
Unless they're waiting until part 2 to give it to him, which I don't agree with. I think if your work for part 1 is just as good as what you're going to put out for good for part 2 is going to be, like, you should be recognized for both.
But also, like, Denis Villeneuve got recognized for Dune Part 1, but not Part 2.
Yeah, and that's a traffic.
I know.
We already went into that.
We're probably gonna go into it again.
I'm sure, because we're gonna reopen that wound, and then I'm gonna have to. I just gotta say what I gotta say.
Also in the same week was the. I'm sorry, I mix up the order. Let's put up the Producers Guild first. I think, the Producers Guild. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So in the same week of the Directors Guild was also the Producers Guild. And so it was like Honora's wild week, because it won the Critics' Choice for Best Picture, it won Best Director, and then it was the winner of Outstanding Producer for a Theatrical Motion Picture at the Producers Guild of America Awards. It won there as well.
Oh, bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. So yeah, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. Like, we were all talking about The Brutalist. We were all talking about Emilia Perez. And now we should be looking at Honora, because it's sweeping right now in the other categories, which is kind of mind-blowing. I don't think anyone saw this coming, given the landscape that it was literally 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but when we watched the movie, we gave it high praise. We gave it really good praise. It was a really good, well-constructed narrative. You can listen to our review or hit our playlist that has all our Oscar movies in there. But yeah, it was a great film.
Yeah, like I said, we enjoyed it, and like, it's not to say that it's surprising that it's winning, but just giving the Oscar landscape, it didn't seem like it was in that track. It looks like a lot of the love was going to either Emilia Perez or The Brutalist, and now we're seeing Honora kind of slip in there, which is it's an indie film. So I'm glad it's getting recognized for what it is. Now, based on the other nominations, I would, like, in my opinion, I would like to think that The Substance should be getting all the awards, but I think I would like Honora to be up there rather than like The Brutalist and Emilia Perez. So that's just my personal opinion. So there's a win there. And then also for the winner for Outstanding Producer of Animated Theatrical Motion Pictures went to The Wild Robot. Again, giving it a leg up on some of the other awards that going into the Oscars now. It now holds the Critics' Choice and the Producers Guild. The Flow has taken the Golden Globes, like I mentioned earlier. So, and then last but not least, this happened literally just last night before we were recording, was the Writers Guild Awards, and Honora won again for Best Original Screenplay, and Nickel Boys won for Best Adapted screenplay. So Anora is sweeping right now. So if you're hedging your bets right now, Anora has now made its way to be the front runner to win Best Picture out of any film, because it is like literally taking all the big ones right now. And the last big awards that we're going to be talking about, which we probably won't get to into our Oscars predictions episode, is the Screen Actors Guild Awards. And that's going to be the one that is going to kind of give us a well-rounded picture of how the Oscars can turn out. A lot of people also focus on the BAFTAs Award, which is the British movie awards. And some things are nominated there differently than it is here. But a lot of people look at the BAFTAs to see what the winners are over there, to also do their predictions for the Oscars. So if Anora's sweeping over there as well, then it seems like Anora is going to be the front runner to win Best Picture, which, if that's the case, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to look at all 10 again to really
sure.
answer that. But what I will say is that it's closer to the top.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's part of the discussion. It's not one of the one. It's not, because you have like your top 3 and the rest are kind of like floating somewhere in the middle towards the bottom.
Well, it's funny because you have your own personal top 3.
Yeah.
Right. But then you also have to consider, okay, what is the Academy's top 3? And like, how is that going? And then does your top 3 align with
Sometimes it
the
does.
Academy's
Sometimes
top
it doesn't.
3? Exactly. I think the last 2 years we were pretty on par with what our favorites were and what the Academy seemed like it was going toward.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was my favorite movie of the year.
Same.
And it won all of the Oscars and all of the other awards. So that was a pleasant surprise that we were on the same line. And then last year, the clear front runner was Oppenheimer, and it clearly won also all of the awards. I think 7 or 8 Oscar wins there. So,
but I don't feel that this year. I don't feel I don't feel a clear front runner this year.
I don't feel a clear front runner, nor do I feel like they're like I do agree with you. The landscapes feels very different this year. It's not clear cut and dry. There's also not a clear favorite that I have. I mean, that's not true.
I have my favorite. I've had my favorite from that one, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But yeah, we'll talk about that in the predictions episode.
For sure. So yeah, anyway, that's where we are right now in the Oscar landscape. Like I said, we're just waiting on the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and then we're going to do a recap of all this again in our predictions episode, in addition to going over every single Oscar category and the nominations that go with it. We're going hard at work right now. Like I said, if you like our Oscar talk, then strap in, because the next 3 or 4 episodes, including, well, I guess this one and maybe 3 after, is going to be surrounding the Oscars. If you don't like our Oscar episodes, well,
see you next month. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see you for Captain America: Brave New World. All right,
yeah, that's our next nerd episode.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. There's also so much stuff that we are watching that we are not talking about because we are in Oscar mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I have a list of stuff that I'm like, oh, I want to talk to Matt about this. I can't, because we're talking Oscar stuff. We just don't have time, with life and everything else.
Yeah, it's just not in the cards. But like I have so much thoughts about other things. Like I've watched 3 shows in the midst of all of this. And I feel like we're doing this to ourselves. It's like, well, we can't talk about it. It's like we can do whatever we want, but we're choosing.
But we choose not to. We choose to hold it in.
And just out of curiosity, just on a quick side note, I have not started it yet. But are you watching Severance?
Of course, I'm watching Severance.
Okay,
week to week. I mean, I'm at Well, I'll take that back. I'm 2 behind. I'm 2 episodes behind. Right. But yes, I am watching Severance.
I gotta keep up. I knew you were watching it. I was like, I'm so deep into Oscars right now. I feel like I have not watched it. But before I started my Oscar, watching, life, I had watched like What If season 3, Skeleton Crew, Creature Commandos. Is like, I want to talk about all this stuff, but we're saving it. We're holding it.
Yeah.
I think Captain America: Brave New World, when we get there after our Oscar conversation, is gonna be nice. Like, We did it.
All right, let's nerd out. Like, let's talk about nerd stuff again. Like,
Yeah, that's gonna be like just a dump of
Yeah.
nerd stuff. So be prepared for that.
yeah, exactly.
So again, if you're not a fan of the Oscar talk, the nerd stuff is coming later down the line.
Yeah.
But for the time being, we're in the full Oscar coverage mode. And now the first movie we're going to talk about, which we're kind of diving into our what you're watching. The next three movies we are discussing is going to be kind of our little mini reviews on some of the other movies that are also nominated. And the first one we want to talk about is September 5. This movie's only nominated for one Academy Award, which was Best Original Screenplay. What's interesting about this movie is that it was considered in a lot of people's lists as a Best Picture contender. A lot of people didn't know which movie. Like 8 of the 10 nominees were kind of solidified, and there were 2 slots that we didn't know where it was going to land between the Academy. And a lot of people thought A Real Pain, September 5, and a list of other films were going to take those last 2 spots. We later found out that when the nominations dropped that those 2 went to Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here, which we're going to be talking about later in the show. So now then we see September 5 got the one nomination. So let's talk about it. Ernesto, your thoughts on the film?
This movie should have 100% been more nominated than was. I thoroughly enjoyed everything about this movie. I really liked the mix of real footage and the interwoven with the narrative. To me, it plays.
That is your favorite.
When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, you're hitting my sweet spot there." Because I feel like it pays such respect to what originally, especially in this aspect, like. Everything they did to get the footage out there, then we should honor that in this movie instead of giving a portrayal. Write your narrative in a way that showcases that exact footage that they were able to show. And I think in the because I watched it with the Q&A at the end.
Oh yeah,
I think here it is. Yeah, that they didn't get the rights into it until 2 weeks before shooting.
Oh my God.
How crazy! But I feel like the movie would not have been the same if it didn't have it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
And
I agree.
I guess I didn't I've been ignorant to this day and what happened because I felt like I was like learning about it as it was happening for the first time.
Oh, I agree. So what's funny is that I did not know. Like it's kind of like you didn't know until like you realized that you knew, but you didn't know until like someone like literally spelled it out for you. But also because I was reading a few things about September 5 after I was watching it, and they said, yeah, and like this film, it's like a good precursor to Steven Spielberg's Munich. And I said, oh, what's that about? And so I looked into it, and it was like, yeah, that movie is about the investigators who were hunting down the terrorist from this event.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, the whole movie, I was like on the edge of my seat. Like like we're just in this one perspective, but yet I felt like it was just so invigorating to watch. You know what I mean? Like just in covering it as it's happening, and just how horrifically it ended.
I feel like for me, excuse me, it did take a little bit of a dip, a little lull, like I would say right in the middle there. There were like some definitely high tension moments, and then it kind of dipped down a little bit, and then it picked back up toward the end. So that's my only knock on the movie, just like how the pacing of it. But even leading into it, it felt very newsroom, Aaron Sorkin-esque. It was fast paced moving, quick talking, things are happening. And also let's also say that for the both of us coming from a news background, this hit is also close to home on something that we are very familiar with.
Yeah.
So that already there had sparked our interest on how they were directing the show. We're very familiar with this atmosphere.
Okay, so not only that, but what really resonated with me, yes, to me, this movie hit harder just because, we've worked in the news. You've worked in the news industry. I still work there. But so there's one part of the movie that just really, I felt like it like triggered like almost like a memory, like memories for me. So, like when days when the news is like either something really horrific has happened, but it was like that solemn mood of everybody being quiet when everybody was being dead. That's what that reminded me of. Like when you're in the newsroom and it's just like it's just quiet. Like everybody's just quietly working. Nobody's joking. Like usually everybody's joking around, like just trying to keep light,
Yeah,
amid all the horrific shit that's happening in the world. But then when it's something that's like local, like locally tragic, it just hits harder. You know what I mean?
for sure. And even though I wasn't personally affected by the events of Pulse, I was working at the news station when we were covering it, and like the room, the atmosphere, it feels different when the news is that big and that local.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you kind of, in a different sense, you feel the same way when there's a major hurricane storming through.
Yes.
Everyone's barreling down, hunkering down, and you're, I wouldn't say trapped, but you're kind of in a safe, confined location, working at the news station, and you're kind of bunkering down, overnighting there. That's part of the job, and you just get the room, the atmosphere, everyone else around you feels like there's important work that needs to be done right now because we need to get this information out to the people.
Yeah.
And so like the kind of the lightheartedness that can maybe come under news atmosphere kind of simmers down because I think we all have the same understanding that this is important. So we gotta buckle down and focus because people need to hear this and we need to make sure we're getting the correct information out there. And yeah, there are a lot of moments where I feel that working at the news station because of how important these stories are and the news that's being portrayed, and you definitely felt that in this movie at times.
Yeah, 100%. When that moment happened, like I was like, oh, they nailed that. They nailed that feeling perfectly. Like,
Yeah,
like I don't know, like I felt I was really pulled into what was. I felt like I was there. I felt I was just every moment was just pulled you right in. It was great, a great film.
the thing that I did not know when I was watching at the time, I think, like, I think the movie, I don't blame the movie for this. I think it probably said it. I just it didn't click in my head that this was ABC Sports News broadcasting. Like these were sports broadcasters not prepared to do the news, and they took it upon themselves to like, hey, this is a responsibility we have, and we're right here. We're not going to send it over to like someone who's in New York covering this stuff. Like we're right here on the ground. And you can see how everyone just assumed the responsibility, even though they're probably used to a lighter atmosphere covering sports. It's like, well, wait a minute, now this is serious stuff. Let's all buckle down and get the work done, and kind of prove ourselves that we're going to cover the story effectively and appropriately. And I feel like that was kind of a interesting way of just kind of really cool seeing that shift when, like I said, important stuff happens.
Yeah, like it's time to lock in.
Yeah, for real. One of the other scenes that kind of resonated with me was the scene where they've been covering the news. They're doing a great job at it. They're following the people who were like on the roofs, and looks like they were going to, like, they were either the police or whoever were kind of zoning in on the terrorists, and they noticed that in the hotel room that the TV was on, and in the terrorist room that the TV was on. And then they're like, wait, are they watching us? Are they watching the news? Because they said like, oh, there's no cable in there. It's like, yeah, there is. There's cable in every room for all the athletes. And then it's like, are they watching us right now? And it was just like a pause. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, are they? And then then the officials came in and told them to shut it down because they're affecting with their operation because they were covering the story, and it seemed like the terrorists were watching it. And then like after they shut everything down because the officials wanted them to, they were now questioning. It's like, did we cause that? Was that our fault for preventing potentially for this to stop? Like, to me, there's so many questions that go into that. And the same goes for news and how it's being covered. I think that was a very interesting aspect to include in the movie that I didn't really think about before.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's a good point. But it's true, because it's like you do need to get the information out there, and we are getting it out there. But why didn't the cops cut the power to the building? Like, that's a question.
Well, that is a question. You're not wrong. but yeah, it's just a mix of like, your moral responsibility, but at the same time, are you helping more than you're hurting?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like kind of a moral dilemma that I really enjoyed about the film. And then also there was also some dynamics there. There was like this horrific thing is happening literally, feet, couple of, not even a mile outside your door where you're broadcasting the room. And like the terrorists are, that whole situation's happening outside of your broadcast center, yet you're told to basically ignore it. And like you see some people like kind of having fun watching wrestling in the midst of all that. And it's kind of like what we were talking about a little bit earlier to some degree. Like they're on this stuff the whole time. They kind of desensitize themselves from the real world that's happening literally right outside their door.
Well, and even in the actual news report, the reporter he even says, he's like, oh, here, just right over here, they're wrestling, and whatever the events is, and like completely unaware of what horrific moment just happened. Maybe just so close to them, and just like people over here walking in the courtyard, just living their day. It's just it was a very that's exactly what you're saying. That it's just very interesting. It's just very interesting.
And then even toward the end, another moral conversation was like, did you just do this for ratings? It's like, is this a promotion for you? It's like, because even when it was like all over, they were talking about more news coverage, more like, oh, we have to do this now, we have to do this, and like again, asking the question, where is the line of doing your job, getting the information out there, and then is this for personal gain on you getting promotions? And I think on top of telling your story, which I think they did really well, they also brought up a lot of moral questions that I also appreciated. It's not like that they were the shining, they weren't the hero of the story. They were humans tasked with the responsibility. And here are, I guess, the reward as well as the repercussions for doing that. And I like how they explored all options there.
Yeah, but because it's hard. It's like, well, no, I do. I work. Do you go to work and work hard to get a promotion? Yeah,
absolutely.
Everybody does that. But to them, it's like, well, and in this, they kind of explored in different ways. It's like, at what point are you hurting more than you're helping? But
right.
I guess to a certain point, there is a line, but what is the line? But then what deserves to not be shown and not be shown? Like where is the line where you are being open and transparent and not hiding anything, and when you're just like giving information that's not helpful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More often, it's funny because when I walked out of the movie, I had a different opinion even talking about it now. I think I have more respect for this movie. It just lingered to me a little bit more as time went on. It wasn't a movie where like I exited and was like, that was a great movie. I was like, oh, that was pretty solid. I liked it. But then now that I thought about it, again, do more research, and I was like, oh, you know what? I respect it a little bit more.
Simmers on you for a little bit.
Just a little bit. But yeah, where's your quick final thoughts, and let's give it a 5-star rating.
Yeah, I actually think I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I actually think this movie deserves more respect than it got. Like it easily could have been a Best Picture. Easily could have replaced Emilia Perez.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna keep beating down that.
Well, I don't want to do it too much. Just let it be known. Like there's movies that deserve to be up there, and there's movies that don't. Like this movie needs to be respected more than what it got. I mean, I'll even go as far like production design, makeup, and hairstyling. Like it's, just how they were able to nail that look. In the interview, they talk about that how long and how extensive it took for them to locate and get all this old equipment to make it a part of this process to make it as real and as authentic as it could. And I felt that. I mean, you felt you were pulled into that time period. At no point did you feel pulled out. I mean, it was seamless. It was expertly done. I thought it was really, really well done. I mean, even in that aspect, and yet only thing it's getting is what best adapted screenplay. Is that what
original?
Best original screenplay. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 5 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm probably on the line of maybe 4.5 stars for me. But I think I think I agree with you with production design. I think they did a really good job replicating, the times of the 1960s?
70s?
1970. Yeah, 1970s. I thought they did a really good job replicating that, and I'm pretty sure that they were playing the real footage during filming, like on those screens they were playing the footage.
Yeah.
So they were reacting to what they would have been seeing in general to give it more authenticity, and also like some of the performances there. The lead actress that was there, she was in the Teacher Lounge.
That is her. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Look at that.
Yeah. Movie we reviewed
so-
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, I remember her from somewhere, and then I looked it up and like, oh, the Teacher's Lounge. Yeah, I know her. And I thought she played a great role too, of like, and she even had a good character arc of asserting her kind of her importance and her dominance with as the movie went on, because she was just a translator, and then the guy was like, hey, go get me a cup of coffee, and then she left to do that, and then the guy's like, he's like, oh, and you just told our only translator who's getting important information to go get you coffee, right? And then like there are other moments where like she was still doing, a lot of people were talking, then she was like, everyone shut up, like I'm listening. And so like she even had her moments in the movie as well that I liked for her as a character to grow. And there's also a lot of other great performances in this movie as well. So yeah, even performance wise, it could have gotten recognized. Production design, I agree with you. I think I think it was definitely up there for best picture as well. Best original screenplay, I'm glad it got that, because the script in this movie was really good.
It is very strong. It's very strong. But I would even say directing, just the way that I think the way that it's constructed and even edited, like, but it didn't get its due. So
unfortunately, it did not. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it'd be like that.
Unfortunately, it do be like that sometimes.
Unfortunately, it do be like that. All right. So that's our thoughts on September 5. Let's now start diving into our best international feature nominees. We're going to be discussing 3 total in this episode, not all of them. Out of the 5, we've already talked about Emilia Perez, and in a future episode, mixed in with our animated categories, we're going to be talking about Flow, which was also nominated for Best International Feature. So we're going to be talking about the remainder international features nominees now, and the first one we're going to be talking about is The Seed of a Sacred Fig. And I'll start here and say this was not my favorite. I don't think I understand the overall messaging of the movie. The first half made a lot more sense than the second half. I'll put it that way. Also, it didn't help with the I wouldn't say extremely long, but it was a 2.5-hour movie.
Oh, it was like 240 something. It was long.
It was a very long movie, and I don't think it needed to be, because the second half of this movie, this is just me, and I don't think it had anything to do with the first half of this movie. Do you agree, disagree? Where are your thoughts?
This movie's, I mean, it's just really long and kind of drawn out. I think I get what they were trying to do, like in this civil unrest, and show this judge who's got this really high powered job, and how like he's, all the shit's going on, and the way people are looking at him, and they're also like, he's a part of the system that's like hurting people. Like, people are protesting about all the wrongdoing. So it's like, let's look at the perspective of a family that their father is a part of the ones who are causing this civil unrest. But then you're also getting this guy who's paranoid because he knows what he's doing is probably not right, and that if his information gets out there, that people are going to be out to get him, which we see kind of unfold out. And his daughters, there's certain parts that were interesting. I thought it was interesting to see the perspective of a wife of somebody who's doing that, because she's like honoring her husband. It's just weird. She was
honoring her husband as well as helping her daughters.
Yeah, like she's like trying to play this back and forth, like where she doesn't want it. She wants to honor, like she has this great, and when all this shit's fucked up, she has this really, really like almost like lavish life. You see it when she's talking to her friend. She's like, soon he's gonna be this, and then he's gonna be that, and then they're gonna put you. And I thought it was interesting, like, oh, once he gets to this level, they're gonna give you a house, probably in a really nice neighborhood that's well protected. Like, you're gonna be much safer. But I think it also, so it's kind of showcasing like also the like how it was in there, because what I thought was really horrific is this cell phone footage that is portrayed throughout the entire film. So like when we were talking, I was looking, I had ChatGPT search this for me, See if he could give me sources. Oh yeah, here we go. So I was asking about the real footage that was in there, and it says yes, the seed of the sacred fig incorporates real footage within its narrative. The film intersperses its fictional storyline with authentic videos from 2022 to 2023 Iranian protests, including demonstrations, police violence, and arrests. Some of the footage was clandestinely captured on iPhones, lending the film a quasi-documentary quality. The blend of real and fictional elements enhances the film's immediacy and impact. So this is, out of everything, I thought was the part that was the most effective, at least to me. Like, I agree with you. The movie's not great, but there's certain aspects that I'm like it just seemed real. I was like, this is not fake. It's like, this is real.
Yeah.
And it was horrific. Like, people being beaten, people being shot. Like, it was just crazy shit.
Well, and like, I agree with you there. And that's why I feel like the front half of this movie was a different movie from the back half of this movie.
I agree with you. It could have been chopped in half and interspersed with that and made a much stronger narrative.
For sure, because to your point, like, there's a one point where this first half of the movie was just focusing on the daughter's perspective on what's happening. And so you have a father who's a judge who's going through his own stuff, but we're also seeing it through the daughter's perspectives of, like, they are aware of the protest, no one's talking about it, everyone wants to ignore it, and then you have a father who's saying, like, well, they're wrong, and they're like, no, they're protesting for a reason, and they're actually right, and you guys are, the officials are just being brutally violent for no reason. And so, like, there was stuff to kind of latch on there. Then you also had her friend, which they gruesomely showed her bruises.
Oh my
and
gosh.
they were on it for a while too.
Yeah.
In the midst of all the protests and everything. So, like, yeah, all that was there. And I don't know. And then all of a sudden we start focusing back on the husband.
Once it became about the gun, it was like a whole other movie.
Yes. And it's like, who stole my gun? I don't know, dude. Find another one.
Isn't it your gun? Aren't you a cop or an investigator? Shouldn't you lock that up and just not put that in your nightstand drawer? Like, you don't have a lock on there? Like, what is wrong with you? Do you know that's not proper gun safety, sir?
But also there's the he was also irresponsible with the gun, as they showed earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Because he just left it, like, in his coat or his pants or whatever, that his wife had to pull out and then put back in the drawer for him, that we saw that happen in the film. So, like, okay, so you already are stressed about your job. You're irresponsible with the gun in general. So at least for the audience perspective, you can allude that he just simply misplaced it. Obviously, again, spoiler, we found out that his youngest daughter actually stole it for reasons I don't know.
Well, I think he knew, because he told his wife, he goes, "Oh, I think she's hiding something." And, like, no, she's not. And he was right. She was. She's the one who stole the gun. But I think just what happened with her friend and her mom's perspective, and how, like, they're always like, your dad's job. And then and then I think at that point she realized that her dad's job maybe is intermixed with what's happening in their society. And then her feeling the need to probably, like, step up and be the one to save her sisters. Because that essentially is what happens at the end.
Yep.
At the end, she's standing on that clay root, I get clay or mud, whatever it's made out of. And he's like, "You're not going to shoot me." He starts stepping towards her, and then she shoots the ground, and the ground breaks apart. And he says, it falls into the hole. And then you just see, and then it just ends with his hand sticking up. So I'm assuming he died. Like, he just got, like, collapsed, all that weight, and he just suffocated to death. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's they leave that part vague. You don't see a hand moving. So my assumption is that he died.
Yeah, I can assume that as well. And
so he was it's almost like he was so worried about everybody else to come to get him that he didn't realize that there was unrest inside his own home that he hadn't dealt with himself. And then he caused his own undoing. Yeah, he caused his own undoing. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. But it turned, I don't know, it felt like, again, it felt like two different movies.
I agree.
The ending and the whole gun situation went on for way too long. It definitely does not justify a second half of a film to compare to what the first half was. I don't even know what, like, if you were cut that whole part out and rearrange some of its core parts, Like you could have told this story in 2 hours, if that.
Yeah, it would have been a much stronger film.
And so these are some of these situations where you just don't understand what the Academy was looking at compared to what we were looking at. And again, you have its portrayal on the civil unrest within that country in the beginning of the movie, and so we get that. But I don't know if the paranoia of the gun and your family, and like, yes, it did seem like people were out to get you, but then you took it out on your family, and we never saw anyone else try to come and get him. So was that even real to begin with? It's like maybe most of this was all in his head that we don't know. It just there was. I'm fine having it like an ambiguous ending on like leaving it open ended, but like I don't know. Like there was a point where it's like, are we really just like really like he put his family through like this interrogation for the gun that seems like the daughter can do no wrong because she hid it very well because they searched the entire room. She was able to pass I'm assuming a lie detector test or whatever interrogation that she was going through. And then all of a sudden she just pulls it out of her jacket in the car.
He's like, oh, I got it right here. I've had it the whole time. You mean this gun?
silly dad, it's in my pocket the whole time.
Ha ha ha, you never found it. Ha ha ha.
What? I don't know. It's one of the movies I just don't see it. I don't see the nomination for it at all.
I'm sure
and I wish it was a much tighter story to then make it stronger for what you were trying to do. Even you could have even had the paranoia stuff in there, but I don't know. It just felt very like cheesy. Like it's something like at the end of an action movie.
Yeah,
that's what the ending felt like. You know, like you're always looking at a B-level action movie, and then all of a sudden like there's like a chase and then like a cheesy, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I got you. I mean, it was like she puts the speakers out. Sada! He starts running out there. Oh, where's the cords? And he starts following it, and then she traps him. And I guess all their doors are made out of steel. He's gonna break the door down. Then he breaks it apart, and then all of a sudden he's like the Bionic Man. He's like full sprint. He's like the guy from Get Out, like full speed.
I don't get it. Anyway, yeah.
Where are you at with it?
Final thought. I mean, I'm at a 2.5.
I'm gonna give it. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Honestly, just for the half, like, I enjoyed the first half. I didn't like the second half. That's where the half goes into, right down the middle. They had lost me with the hour-and-a-half gun chase. Where's the gun? Where's the mystery of the gun? Like after the first 30 minutes, I don't care. I don't care where the gun is. Move on. Go get a different gun. He gave you another gun. Your friend gave you another gun. That's it. You have another gun. Oh, game over. Let's get over it. You know, I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I didn't get the point of it, but I feel like by the end of it, I didn't care enough to go looking into it any further.
I get that, and it was just way too long. This movie could have easily been an hour and a half. It could have been a much tighter narrative. I would have appreciated more of the intersperse of the real footage and kind of expanding on those stories and then make them relate to this fictional narrative a little bit more. It could have been it could have been a lot better. But
yeah,
so I'm gonna go with
what they had.
Yeah, I'll meet you. I was really thinking 2, but I'll meet you at 2.5.
I mean, I'll meet you at 2.
Okay, fine by me.
So yeah. Anyway, that is The Seed of a Sacred Fig. Moving on to our next one, The Girl with the Needle.
Oh, this is a movie.
This is a movie. Also, 90 minutes? Right? It was pretty. Was it 90 minutes or was it 2 hours?
I don't know because this movie is a lot. That's what it is.
You know what? It's as much as the other one was also a lot. This one was a lot, but with more reason.
It was a better narrative. It was a better narrative. This one has a much better a better narrative for us to follow.
Yes, a much stronger one too. Like to your point, I was able to follow along. It's 2 hours, not an hour and a half. I was able to follow along this story much clearly than the other one. even though, man, was it brutal.
Yeah. It is it's something. It's something is what it is. At first I was like, why is this movie in black and white? And then we got about a quarter in the movie and I go, oh, it's because it's gross. That's why. Because it deals with like it gets really dark and really gross. Like the girl with the needle plays several different meanings. You know, the shop where she's working, the thing she uses to try to give herself like what year is this movie? A 1919 version of an abortion. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Oh, it was just so oh my gosh. I was like, what is happening? Oh, that's what she's doing. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Oh gosh. That was so rough. It was a rough watch. It was a rough watch for me.
I understand that completely. It was at the end of the day, as much as the viewing experience was kind of brutal,
Yeah.
it sat with me longer than I thought it would. Like
I agree
I
with that.
understand it to an degree what we were trying to do. Even the title right there in the comments is nightmarishly beautiful, terrifyingly timeless. Yeah, I agree with that. The themes of 1919 is still very prevalent to the day in 2025, and like there was a lot that was going on in this movie that it was very horrific to see and portrayed, but it still happens today. Most of the stuff that happened in this movie is still going on for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, it was to see her husband, how he came back from the war and like what happened to their relationship and like how she moved on and the whole thing with her boss and him getting her pregnant and just how that whole thing played out. Oh my gosh, she gets kicked out of her apartment and sent to like this like trash hole where she's like literally pissing in a bucket.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know, the events of this movie to me it just feels like one tragedy after another for like in her case she could not catch a break and the only silver lining that she had was basically marrying the wealthy factory owner.
Well, he came on to her obviously because he was bored because he he had nothing else to do. So he just took on this girl. He got told, did what he did, got her pregnant, and then when mommy said no, he's like, "Well, I can't let go of my money, so goodbye. I don't love you that much."
Yeah, seriously. It's like, is she? Hey, mommy, is she good? No.
Yeah.
All right.
So he's not a man.
Thank you.
He's a little boy who has a lot of money.
Yes, and you're right. He was bored and just wanted to have some fun. And then when she was like, "Hey, I'm pregnant," and then the mom was like, "Yeah, that's great, but no."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, let's get married. Let's come to the house so mommy can approve."
Mommy, I disapprove. Well, that sucks.
Shit, that didn't work. That kind of complicates things a little bit.
Well, and even like the mom was brutal too. She's like, "Yeah, your services at the factory are no longer required." So not only like because also before that she like told her husband to go fuck off.
Yeah, she's like, you look gross and you've been gone a long time. Like this cannot happen.
Also, it was a year.
Yeah, and I'm already pregnant, so no.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not your baby.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Also, and we're joking about this, but the first third of this movie is surprisingly lighthearted compared to the rest of this movie, how it plays out.
Yeah, it starts lighthearted and it's just a slow descent into hell. Like, yes. So, newsflash, she gets pregnant. She gets rejected by this family. And then she goes to this bathhouse where she proceeds to try to give herself an abortion. And this lady's like, "No, have that baby. I'll take the baby and then I'll get the baby a family." So that's what she does. She gives the baby. She has the baby. She gives it. And oh, by the way, she has the baby in the entrance to a coal mine. Like everybody's going to work and that's like, "Oh, all right, work's gonna start. This lady's having a baby right here. Let's just stand here and watch this lady give birth to life."
Hold on. I understand that you got to work, right? but also like this man at the time was approving people to come in to work every day. Like they had to go to the doors of the factory and was like, okay, we're only accepting 50 people. So first come, first serve. All right, go, stop. All right, we're not accepting any more people. When I don't know, when you're that pregnant, I'm not sure if you can start doing that physical manual labor like that. Hey, when you're pregnant, I would never be pregnant, so you can do whatever you want when you're pregnant. I don't know, but I feel like shoveling coal is not a thing you should be doing when you're that much in labor. But like you got to work, you got to do what you got to do, and like I get it. But
Like you don't have any
I don't
other
think they were.
options. You know, what if that's
I don't
like,
think
and that's the
they
only
were
work she could
prepared.
find?
Yeah, exactly. And you do what you got to do. I just don't think anyone was prepared to start going into labor at that particular moment.
No, I don't think so. So then she has the baby, you know, bites the umbilical cord off, whatever, gives it to this lady.
Yeah.
And
Wait, hold
then-
on. Was that before or after she got back with her husband?
Oh
I
shit.
think it was. I think she got back with her husband before she gave birth. So she got rejected by the wealthy
Yes.
man. So
yes.
yeah, so she rejected her husband. Husband left, went back to the wealthy man. All that stuff went down. Then went back to her husband that she finds at a circus,
Yeah.
and then decides to bring her back home or bring him back home after he got humble and not being a jackass.
Mm-hmm.
And then was starting to work, and I guess he wasn't working. I don't know what he was doing. And then had the baby, and then she was like, well, I guess the abortion attempt was in the middle of all that as well.
Yeah. Well, because in
Uh,
the beginning, she had, you know, before she has the baby, she does the abortion thing. The lady's like, you know, have the baby.
Yeah.
Well,
bring
then
it
I'll
back.
bring it back, and then I'll take the baby from here. So then she does that. I'm having a hard time remembering what is the thing that initiated her to go back to that lady.
I remember it was she took the baby home and the husband was there, and she was like, I'm gonna, send it over to a foster family tomorrow. And the husband was like, hey, we should keep this baby. This is a beautiful thing. And I think he went to go get a crib for the baby. And I remember like him taking the crib and then like walking it up the stairs. And then she snuck out and went to the lady's house and then like gave the baby up.
So what's really, I just thought about this. So what's oddly interesting about that is that that's kind of parallel to what happens at the end. Like one person goes out to do something and the other one follows them, and they're each going to go do something, which causes, the next thing to happen in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. It just reminded me of that.
And so then she gives the baby up. She realized that she's doing some honorable work, and she's also down her luck. And she also didn't want to be with her husband again, because it looks like they had different views. So she asked if she can stay and help, because I guess she has all this breast milk that she can help feed the babies while they're in transition of finding a foster home. The lady takes her in. There's also another younger girl that's also there that was also breastfeeding.
Well, because if there's no other food, then she can just drink breast milk to at least survive.
That's fair. And then then they started forming a relationship, and this is the part where I think I remember we were speaking and you said you didn't finish the movie yet, and I had already finished it, and you're already like, oh my god, and I was like, just wait.
Yeah. So the first, she's feeding this girl, and then she gives her this other baby. They're like, here, watch this baby while they're in transition. And then, she had already started feeding the little girl, and the little girl wanted a nighttime feed, but she was sleeping with the baby, and she said no. So then the little girl tries to smother and kill this little baby.
Yes.
So then she tries, the lady gets up, smacks the shit out of her, and rightfully so. And then, and then the next day she says she gives up the baby. And then did she follow her? Is this the time when she followed her?
Because also the other woman said that you can keep this one. Like you can hang on to this one. And then she was like, no, I found a family. We had to take her back. And and so then, which I already had a suspect that this was happening.
Yeah, I did not suspect that whatsoever.
I had a feeling that something dark was going on. And so our leading lady follows the other woman because they found a home. It's in the crib. She's walking with the crib. She's trying to figure, because she got attached to this baby at this point, and so she's following to see where she's taken the baby. Eventually, she follows her to an alley. She turns the corner, and this is maybe a trigger warning of what I'm about to say, but the woman basically strangles the baby and then dumps it in the sewer.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, and like they kind of like show you without showing you. You're shown the back of
Yes.
this woman, and you see her like moving her hand back, and like from her back you see her moving
Yes.
something around, like strangling the baby. So you basically watch her strangle the baby. It's pretty rough. And then then the whole movie just kind of like spirals out of there. The other lady gets arrested, and then come to find out she's done it in like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Like she's helped so many other women. So it's
Right.
almost like, but what I thought is interesting about this is that, so like it kind of highlights abortion, but then also highlights like the other side of it. Like the baby becomes full term, and she gives birth to the baby, and then you essentially have the abortion post labor, because then she takes the baby and kills the baby. It kills the baby after you give birth to it.
Yeah, it's kind of
right. That's what it made me think. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and she was like, even when she went to court, she was defending her actions. She's saying, I was helping hundreds of women, like, kind of putting them at ease, thinking that their baby was going to a good home. But in reality, she was doing two things. She was one that was willing to do the dirty work, as she called it. And the other side was getting a paycheck. She was getting paid for her actions.
Yeah.
And like, obviously that's what it was at the end of the day, is like, here, I'm going to help you out. You can leave with a good conscience, and my conscience is fine because I'm helping out women who are in need. And that's how she justified it.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was a crazy ending, and to the point where our leading lady was able to, I think her name was Coraline. She eventually was able to adopt the young girl that was throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think that's what happened, because the other woman who went to court, and she I guess was fostering the young girl, and then she had nowhere to go, and so then she was like, because you can tell that she felt like she made a mistake, because now within this process she wanted to be a mother, and now she could be a mother to this young girl, and she went back to her husband. I don't know if they ever went back together or just checking in, see how he's doing.
I think it's assumed that like it's almost like she realized that she should have stayed at the life that she was in. Like she should have just never gave up her baby. Like she should have just listened to her husband and kept the baby and accepted the responsibility of having the baby, and not have to go through this horrific experience.
Yeah, as much as, like I said before, and there's also some wild imagery that they also implanted throughout the film. Like, at least in the very, very beginning of the movie, where we had like those transforming faces.
Oh yeah,
that were there, that just looked really weird, and that's how we started it. And I was like, oh man,
it's gonna be one of those.
It's gonna be one of those movies. But I think at the end of the day, like, it was a rough watch, but like I said, there's a lot in this movie that really resonates with you and affects you coming out of it. It's not a good feeling coming out of this movie at all.
No, I'll never watch this movie again.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't watch this movie either, but it sticks with you. Like, that's for sure. And I think for what it is, I think to me, this one deserves the nomination.
Yeah. Oh, I could 100% see the nomination. It's there. It's just, but I feel like the messaging is there as well, and it leaves it makes you think about a lot of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's what a movie like this should do.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's not meant to be. I think we've talked about this before. It's not meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be understood.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. And
I feel like this movie played that role pretty well. And as long as you kind of understand the messaging behind it, then, and not to say that you're forgiving the horror nature that you just witnessed, but you understand what the movie is trying to tell you. And I think that's the important part. And if it can do that well, then you earn my respect of, being in this conversation. And so, yeah, like I said, this walking out, like this was like one of those movies where I walked out of, like, when we finished watching it, I was like, I need to watch something mindless and stupid.
I need something happy.
Yeah. Like let's put on a Marvel movie, like the good ones, any of the good ones. I just want to watch that for 2 hours because this one hurts my soul. But yeah, I'm giving this like a 4 out of 5. Like
I'm with you on that.
I was able to really resonate with this film more ways than one. So yeah, I like this one for what it is. Like like you, to your point, I'm never watching it again. But
No, but
I think a lot of it's.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. I think it's
Yeah.
it's deserve its due.
I think its themes and messaging was very strong, and honestly, it should have been up there for best screenplay.
I can agree with that. I'll give you that one. I think it should more than others. I'm not going to name names.
I think we can guess. I think the story was much stronger and kind of resonates more. And as of right now, out of the other, well, comparatively, like this one has a lot of legs to stand on when it comes to some of the other, international films that could be looked at. That's also nominated for other categories. Like I feel like this should have been more than just best international feature. That's I'll put it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that's The Girl with the Needle. And yeah, so now we're going to be diving into our best picture categories, rounding out our best picture nominees. I think these are the last two films that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here is where we're going to start with Nickel Boys. And Ernesto, we'll start with you. No, hold on. Let me apologize. I was going to read this. Nickel Boys, again, 2-time Oscar nominee for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. So, Nestor, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Nickel Boys?
I really enjoyed this film. I love the first person view that the film offers. I thought it was unique to the storytelling. I felt like I was pulled in a little bit more. I liked in different aspects you were able to see the reflection of who you were, like the windows in the opening. Like I liked seeing you see all the footage, but then in that moment as he's watching it, he starts to see himself in that, like kind of reflecting, like how to me it was like kind of reflecting like what he wanted to emulate. When his mom is ironing and you see him in the reflection, I just thought cinematically, I thought it was really cool to see. The outhouse scene was very, very intense. You could just feel the tension. You get this first person perspective of Elwood. He's like this prominent African American kid. He's very smart. He gets a letter to get accepted into this prestigious school, but then he takes a hitchhike ride from this guy who ends up finding out he steals a car. So then because he's underage, they send him to this like reformatory school, which is the Nickel, would ends up being the Nickel Academy. And even within the academy, they're segregated, whereas the whites have it's kind of like a boarding school for boys where they're kind of playing football. They have really nice housing, but for the African American kids, it's like, it's like basically like slave, like indentured servitude. Basically, they're their own form of like childhood slavery. These kids are doing all the work. They're living in like really bad conditions. And if they step out of line, which is, I was just referencing the outhouse scene, I think how they pull you into that moment and it being first person, like I was tense watching that scene. And then you like standing in this dark, dirty room and like hearing what's happening in the other side. And then, oh my gosh, it was some parts were just really, really rough to watch.
Yeah, I will admit that the first person aspect of it didn't really hit me as far as effective storytelling up until the ending of the movie, which we'll get to in a minute. But I feel like that aspect, once we got to the ending, and there was surprisingly a twist in this ending that I was not expecting.
Yeah, that one got me too.
Yeah, and that was honestly what sold me on the first person perspective, that we were witnessing throughout the entire film. And kind of like the part that was also confusing to me was, why are we switching people? Like, we were switching the first person perspective through Elwood and Turner. And I was like, well, that's weird, because now that's going to start getting confusing on who we are following. Or is it Elwood or is it Turner?
It did a little bit. And then sometimes when we replayed like that lunch scene, the exact
Yes.
same scene from the different perspective, but I felt like we didn't really gain anything new from that new perspective. You know what I mean? Or at least I didn't.
No, I didn't either. I think the whole scene was just to reference that we are now in Turner's perspective rather than Elwood. And so they just replayed the scene so the audience can understand what they did cinematically, and then we can move on with the rest of the movie. And then now it's your job to keep up between if it's Elwood or if it's Turner. And I feel like at the time of viewing, I feel like that was maybe a little bit unnecessary, because I don't think we gained anything different between the two perspectives, with the exception of when Elwood's grandmother went to go visit the school, and she meets Turner and not Elwood. And so I think that scene resonated really well of the first person perspective. But I feel like, as far as, and I don't have a lot of negative, I just want to bring it out first, is that I feel like at times the first perspective was a little bit confusing, and then the pacing of the film was a little bit slower than I would like it to be.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it was just trying to give its due to kind of lay out everything that happened. I think, and so maybe they felt maybe it was kind of bottlenecked through, because we're telling it through this perspective. So we have to go through certain story beats we wouldn't have to if we were in just a regular, outside third person perspective.
Yeah, and I think even with the slow pacing of it, didn't help with its 2-hour and 20-minute runtime, which I feel like a lot of it contributed to viewing within the first person, like just the environment. And there wasn't really a lot of story beats that were happening. We're just kind of absorbing our surroundings. And I feel like we could have, that to me, which slowed the movie down a little bit. And I feel like we could have cut some of that, but obviously there was a reason behind it. And, like, again, those are my knocks to the movie. But as the movie went on, and as honestly, not, again, very similar experience, I walked out of it just thinking one way, and then it lingers a little bit longer and longer on the film, and then I was able to appreciate it for what it was trying to do. One thing for sure is just the cinematic choices that they decided to do on that. You could have told the story in a very linear fashion, it would have been just fine. But I think, to your point, and especially in the outhouse scene, that the first person perspective was able to really resonate more, rather than you seeing the actors do that. And I feel like in some cases, like, it was, I'm assuming, hard for the actors to act, because we're not seeing them act. It's just all within their voices. Like, we're not seeing them. I guess we're supposed to be in their shoes. I'm assuming that's kind of what the point of it. Yeah. So I feel like that kind of resonated in a different way than if we were to see it kind of play out. It was different, and I can respect different. And I think the director made an interesting call, because this was not in the book at all. Like, they told through this first person perspective, but he decided to tell the story in a narrative, in a fashion where was unconventional, and therefore, gave it more uniqueness to it at the end of the day.
I think for me, what holds weight is just its relation to the real life events. As we were talking about, it references the Dozier School in just looking it up here in Marianna, Florida, it operated from 1900 until 2011.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't that wild? Like, it just closed, like, not too long ago.
Yeah.
And that there's a group of men in the early 2000s that came out, survivor testimonies of real life White House boys, because then they would take them into a place called the White House, is where all the bad stuff would happen, to expose the horrors. And that's what inspired the novel and then the eventual film. So to me, like, as we were talking about with Seed of the Sacred Fig, taking a real life event and mixing it narratively, I felt like Nickel Boys did a much better job at doing like taking what really happened, but giving us this narrative that kind of highlights both things. Like you're able to tell
For
the
sure.
story about this people, about this person, and how they were affected by this, a reference to a real life event of things that actually happen to people that causes people to go, damn, that was really bad. Oh shit, like something like that really happened, and then that's what causes that people to look into and learn about these events.
Right. Yeah, and I do agree with you. This is a much better story narratively than like the Seed of a Sacred Fig, who is trying to emote the same function of
Yeah.
like, here's something that's happening in real events, and now we want you to feel what these people, and in a fictional story based on these real events. This one did a way better job of like getting the audience
Yes.
into this environment and feeling what they might have been feeling in those moments and wanting to get out, and well, this feeling stressed and pressured, and like this arbitrary like point system that like going up the ranks of good behavior and now gets you out. It like I feel like no one was ever going to leave for good behavior. Like that was a facade. That
Yeah,
was never
exactly.
going to happen.
And I think we saw that when with the boxing match. Like who is the guy from
From
Shrinking.
the Ted Shrinking.
With the boxing match, he knew that I don't know. To me it was unclear. I think he knew to not take a dive. Like his pride in that moment. He's like, well, I'm probably gonna die anyway, because as Turner was telling him, he's like, nobody ever gets out of Nickel. Like the only way you
Yeah.
get out is in the ground. And that's the other thing that was true, is that they have these unmarked graves, which we saw at the end.
Yeah.
Like that's all real footage, real pictures, real video of these unmarked graves of all these kids that they killed. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
These grown men killing babies, killing children.
Yeah. That, I mean, and who knows how long they were doing it for. Obviously they were
Before
finding
that, yeah, exactly.
yeah, and then also like how recent were they doing it? Like to say that this shut down in 2011, that means that there's a possibility that you're still killing children like not even 20 years ago.
Oof. I
You know what I
would
mean?
really, I hope not. I would see, my assumption is that maybe they went through reform within the school, especially like after the civil rights movement. But I don't know. I haven't done enough research to answer that, to like even respond to that. But maybe, I would hope not. Like,
I
and
know.
hopefully all those people get, the people who are still alive can be held accountable for their actions.
And then we were getting these flash forwards of I believe it was Daveed Diggs who was portraying, I recognize his voice, was portraying an older version of what at the time
Elwood.
what we assumed was Elwood. Going well, yeah, it's it was Elwood to some degree, of like doing research into the facility and like just talking to his wife and like, hey, this is, they found more bodies, and looks like he was investigating as much as everyone else was to kind of bring a case to bring this place down, or if it was already down. I wasn't quite clear on when the timeline was when he was investigating into Nickel. But then again, spoiler alert, that the big twist of the movie was that we assumed that with the flash forward that Elwood escaped or was let go from the Nickel Boys Dozier Academy. Or that's what it was called. It was the Dozier School for Boys. We later found out that within all that, in the midst of toward the end of the movie when Elwood and Turner were escaping, Elwood was the one that got shot and killed, and it was Turner who was able to get out, find Elwood's grandmother, who we saw have an interaction in the beginning and toward the middle of the movie, and they were able to change his identity to be her grandson, and they changed his name, and yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty sad. I mean, I don't know. It's another one of those, like, it was great. It was good for what it was, but I don't think I could ever rewatch that movie.
No. Again, it's again one of those movies Not to be entertained, but to understand.
Yeah, and then the guy
Uh,
who shot him is the guy who they were running like deals with. Like they would go out
yeah.
and do orders with him, and he's the one who had to go out and shoot him.
Yeah, acting like they were friends the entire time, and there was a point where it's like, yeah, no, I'll help you out, if you help me out, type of situation. But at the end of the day, they were all looking out for their own, following orders, and they were trying to escape. And he's like, no, I'm gonna shoot these Negroes down,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's what ended up going along here. To me, the ending of the movie and seeing how the twist was that it was Turner under Elwood's name who survived and was doing all this research, then really turned my perspective around on the first person perspective. Because it was only flipping between Elwood and Turner, they were almost in the sense acting as if they were the same person, because that they weren't, but under the surname they were. And so, like, I that's the way I took from among other things, that's how I understood toward the end the first person perspective and how that was effective storytelling when it came to the ending of the film.
Yeah, to me it was like, well, like what if you like the movie kind of put it on you? Like, what if you were
Yeah.
Turner? What if you were Elwood? Like, so to me it worked. It worked for me because it was a way to pull you in closer to these atrocities that were happening. Imagining you're the person waiting to get whipped, listening to somebody else being tortured in the other room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that scene again really highlighted, and in a way, yeah, it really highlighted the horrors of just like waiting, like they're just waiting and you're hearing it, and like I thought we were gonna see it, but I think waiting for it to happen rather than seeing it was much more terrifying.
Yeah.
Than actually like going through a first person perspective, actually experiencing it. And then also I saw some behind the scenes, and the actors basically had like they were cinematographers on top of that as well. So they had like the whole thing strapped onto their chest, and they were moving and acting for one another in those scenes as well. So it was kind of cool. Like I said, they took a lot of interesting aspects to tell this story narratively and cinematically. And so in a way, even though it wasn't like in a way, I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for best cinematography, even though like I don't think it definitely needed to be nominated, but I'm surprised that it wasn't. That's all I'm saying.
I would argue that it probably should have. I mean, it's an important part of the storytelling. Like, how are you going to nominate? How can you nominate it for the screenplay and the movie? Right? Those are the two that it's nominated for. And then, I mean, the cinematography is the movie. Like that is it is a crucial part of the storytelling. So it is kind of weird that it's not nominated.
But like I said, I also understood it too, because it's not like doing like big sweeping shots or wide shots. It was POV. So, but I think it's to me, I like it more recognized for the kind of creative aspect of what they could do rather than just telling the story outright and adapting the novel. They decided to tell it in a different way, and I'm pretty sure that's probably why he's getting Raymond Ross is probably getting recognized for his directing style, because that's something unique that you don't typically see in film. In addition to him portraying, the way that he decided to adapt the novel as well. And Colson Whitehead, was apparently he's also a famous author who also wrote The Underground Railroad, that was adapted into an Amazon Prime original series directed by Barry Jenkins.
Oh.
And so he did The Underground Railroad, and then his next novel was Nickel Boys. And now that's also being recognized highly now in this film. So he's definitely writing great work, highlighting parts of African American history and putting them in a way that people are really resonating with, and then now getting these these African American directors to portray them in a way that it should be portrayed in within television and film.
Yeah,
so
I totally agree.
So it seems like all good stuff here. And so like as much as it was not as difficult to watch as say The Girl with the Needle, but there were some aspects of this movie that were a little bit rough to watch. But I think the ending for me is what really resonated the most, because again, walking out of this movie, I was watching, I just felt like the pacing was slow. But when it hit, I think the ending for me, really changed my entire perspective on the entire movie, and therefore, I'm giving it like a 3.5 for me.
3.5. I'll meet you. I'm there. 3.5.
Do you want to go higher?
No, I'm good. I was thinking either 3.5. I was in between 3.5, 4, but leaning more towards 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, I think this was now we had this conversation already, within the other films. Do you see the Best Picture nomination?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I do. At least for this one, I do.
Yeah, I agree here. And so, yeah, I definitely understand the nomination now that it's even, it has a really strong chance of getting Best Adapted Screenplay. Like it's winning in the awards as well. And I think it might take it. Like, I don't know. We'll have that discussion later, but I think it has a strong contender of becoming like this is the one that it could actually win. Very similar to the sense last year, like American Fiction. It won for Best Adapted Screenplay for that film as well. And that was also another great film.
I don't know. I have to listen to our prediction episode to answer that question.
Fair enough. So yeah, there you go. That's our spoiler review.
Oh, do you want to look at do you want to look at the box office?
I think I had limited. I'm not sure much of
box office. I think it did. I think it did have a limited release. I think you're right.
Yeah, it did have limited release. I'm not sure if there's much to talk about there. Because it was released later. It was supposed to be released a lot sooner. But I maybe they're pushing it back for some Oscar pushes. But yeah, it was limited release. It's gone. It's out of the theaters now. And like it only lasted for like a week in our area. And the same for a lot of these movies. The Seed of a Sacred Fig was only out for a week. The Girl with the Needle was only out for a week. I think I'm Still Here, because it's nominated for Best Picture, is lasting for 2 weeks. But it's surprising that some of these films are like, we'll give it a theater run just for 1 week. So if you got to watch it, you got to watch it. And then we only giving you like 4 showtimes to choose from. So figure it out.
Yeah, that's my own personal gripe with the Oscars. Like they don't make it convenient for you to want to watch everything and to make you care. Like if you want to watch the Super Bowl, they make it very easy for you to watch it. Like they don't even like certain things. They don't even offer an option, or it's like you don't get access to it until after the Oscars.
Right.
It's like, well, then why would I even care to watch the Oscars? Oh, I'm not gonna get on that high horse again.
That's fair.
I'm done.
That's fair. I do know that at least for the Best Pictures, which more people care about that than all the other categories.
I guess that's
that.
True.
At least like Regal and AMC and Cinemark has like their Best Picture like marathon. And so as we get closer, like for I think it's like most theaters doing it like for $5 you can watch like $5 each you can watch the Best Picture nominations, and they'll re-release them, and for some will be out for the first time, specifically like I'm Still Here and Amelia Perez, who was only on Netflix but now is getting a theatrical limited run as well. So like I think they make the Best Pictures a little bit more convenient. It's the other ones that are extremely hard and difficult to find, that if you only care about Best Picture, then you can get that. And that's what probably the majority of people only care about. But then now you have the, probably a decent majority like ourselves who want to see a lot of what the Oscars have to offer. And that's when it becomes very difficult to do. But yeah, surprisingly, this one is like, it had a limited run. I think it's out of the theaters already, and it's in transition of becoming available to VOD, which I think it's happening within the next couple of days.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. That's our spoiler review on Nickel Boys. Now, as our final review of the week, we're going to be talking about the 3-time Oscar nominee, I'm Still Here, a film from Brazil, nominated for Best Picture, Best International Feature, and Best Actress for Fernanda Torres. And again, this is another film that upon watching it, I didn't walk out of it being like, wowed, but it lingered with me a little bit longer. I was able to resonate with it more, doing a little research. And then the ending was also what really sold me on the movie as well, that really was able to understand the meaning behind the film, and specifically Fernanda Torres' performance in this movie as well, and what that meant for the film. So I think over, the last lingering in my mind after watching the movie the last couple of days, I was able to appreciate this movie more as I initially walked out of it. What about you?
So for me, I feel like out of everything we watched this week, this one was by far my favorite. Like
Mm.
this one hit me so hard at the end of the film. I was in tears at the end of this movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like seeing them leave, having them all together. It's just the way that the movie was constructed. So I actually love that I was ignorant to the story. Like I guess it's
Mhm.
good and bad. You know, I probably should have known about this, but I had conceptualized that this was a fake family and not that it was an actual true story. And yeah, I think what you were kind of just noting there, I think I love the respect they paid to them at the
Oh my
end.
god.
I mean, the ending was so emotional when she's sitting there and she's looking at the little boy, almost like, you know, like everything almost like reflecting like everything that our family went through, and you know, my husband missing and everything that happened, but here we are, the next generation of our family, like being able to move forward from this horrible atrocity. And you know, and then the very next thing is that she's seeing the news and how they were talking about her husband. I was great. I think I was fascinated about the Brazilian dictatorship and kind of the input of the military, and seeing it play out in this narrative. I mean, this man is, you know, they, as we were talking about earlier, he gets captured, but they go to his house and they basically tell him, you know, you're gonna come with us, and that was the last time she ever saw him. Like I
Yeah.
love the construction in the beginning where it's kind of like this, almost like just like a family drama. Like, you know, they're spending all this time together. It's a lot of beautiful family time, and just kind of the subtle, when those guys showed up, there was like a subtle shift in the tone of the film, and I just thought it was
Yes.
just so well done. I just thought it was really really well done, and Fernanda Thompson was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. This
Torres.
movie is really, I really really enjoyed this film. Like it was heartfelt, it was emotional, it was just kind of like not necessarily thrilling, but almost trying to think of the
Engaging.
engaging. I like that. I was engaged the entire time. I thought the acting was just really really well done. A lot of like subtle beautiful moments. I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like again, upon watching it, I was confused on what was happening. Like as much as is I because again, I also ignorant to what was happening in the time of what 1970s uh Brazil political dictatorship, knew nothing about this story. And to your point, I also didn't realize until honestly, it wasn't toward the end of the movie where like the son is like, I wrote this book, and I was like, oh, is this book real? I guess like I'm assuming it is.
It is. Yeah.
And then yeah, and then obviously, you know, the movie ends and based off the novel. So like, oh, okay, all right. Um, and I was I had to do research because I'm like, there's something I'm missing here. I don't understand what's happening. Why did he go missing? Like, what was like? I didn't catch all of this the political stuff that was happening within this movie. Once I did the research and found out, it all clicked. I was like, oh, okay, I understand this part. But as far as like him like leaving and not coming back and seeing how the family was responding to that I was able to connect with, obviously, because like that is, you don't need to understand a family going in disarray. uh you don't need to understand the political side of what the family was going through because it's already horrific. But and then also what the family went through even being interrogated as well. But I think what really, to your point, you mentioned the tonal shift of the movie. I think what the movie did a really good job with was highlighting how like this family dynamic, and they were just a happy family
Hmm.
together. Like they were enjoying life, being free spirited. The kids were coming in and out. They were having in their lives, like in a way, in somewhat of a sense, that it was like a very privileged life that that they were living. They were looking to expand their home. Like everyone was just enjoying each other's company and time. They were having friends over and having parties, going to the beach. Like you can feel that connectivity within the family and their friends, and we're all just enjoying life together. And then, just like life just hits you like a ton of bricks. Some horrific event happens. Your husband gets shifted away. You get zero information, and then you slowly get that tonal shift on how it affects the family and how it will affect the family for the rest of their lives. And I think Fernando Torres's performance, and I feel like her much quieter performance than anything. It wasn't like she was like outlandish. It wasn't like it
No,
was loud. It's not like she was giving big speeches. It was her quiet performance is what really sold this movie.
it was almost like a silent resilience that she portrayed
Yeah.
throughout the film that just really resonated. It just resonated really well, and then like I felt like I was really learning about this woman who did so much because after everything happened, she gets her law degree later on in her life, and all this human rights work that she did. It was, I mean, it was really. This movie is really. I would actually, and the other thing, I would rewatch this film. Like, even though it's kind of the subject material is really hard, but I think just how they portray everything, I thought was really well done. That it lends to, it gives it that rewatchability.
Yeah, I think this is one of those movies where I would now, knowing what I know now about the story and about the real life events, going into the movie under a different lens might even help me like understand the movie even more.
Yeah, totally.
And we've talked about this many times. Last year was Oppenheimer. I did the same thing there, and I feel like I could benefit a lot from rewatching this film under the lens that I know now, just getting a little bit more history. And then that's the part that is always confusing at times, where we've talked about this before, like having the knowledge going into a movie as opposed to the movie doing the work for you is like, I feel like it wasn't as clear cut of what was happening, but after doing the research, I understand it now. And so then like, do I want to go back and rewatch it under the lens that I do? It's up to, the viewer, but like, that's the part, like, do I need to start doing research on some of these movies before it? Is that ruining the movie for me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm more of the mindset of not. That the movie, it's part of the movie's job to pull you in and make you want to do research, as this movie did. I feel like they gave you enough to make you want to go and look into it.
Yeah. I think some of the like interrogation scenes it wasn't horrific, but it was
No.
just like, it just kind of highlighted like how much like just like how much they had zero control of the situation. Like,
Yeah.
and they were just like, you have these people in your homes. Obviously, Ruben Pelva was involved with something that the dictatorship that later went into was not approving of. They're kind of like he was like silently protesting and trying to dethrone the dictatorship as well. And obviously they took him in for that. We later found out either in the movie or I might have saw this in a explained video that in real life he actually died 2 days later after he got taken due to injuries to the interrogations that they were doing, to the torture that they were giving him. So like, it's crazy that like all of that happened. He, at the point that they had already interrogated his family, he was already dead.
Yeah. So it's like, what are you doing? Like, you already know, like, were you just holding up this facade and just having some fun?
Yeah. The lack of information that they were given. And then even on her sense, she was like, I wouldn't say pretending, but she blatantly was just not omitting information to her children of what was happening, what was going on. Like, hey, everything is fine, it's normal. And like in some cases, like that is like you're kind of shielding your children from the reality of what the situation is. But at the same time, like you yourself are not. She had those moments of like either crying or like breaking down to herself. But when she's in front of her kids, she's like almost a different person, kind of putting up a front to make sure like the wheels are keep turning.
Mm.
And go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, just seeing her going through everything she went through and having to raise 5 kids by herself.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then like having the decision to wanting to move from the house that brought them so much joy. And you can see like just like going to the house and like they had the nice house with the beach view and walking distance to the beach, and like here's this lavish life that we now have to give up because it's just not sustainable anymore. And also it now became a house of heartbreak rather than a house of joy.
Yeah, totally agree.
And then they had to go back where it was probably safer from the dictatorship. And what I also found interesting, Walter Salles, who was the director of the film, knew the family. He was involved in those parties that they had in that we saw in the beginning of the film. Like he knew this family very well. And so for him, this was a very personal story. And he was like, I was reading that he was able to capture a lot of the essence of what the family was before he got captured because he was involved in that environment. He was there.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah,
So
that's
he
wild.
knew how to capture that very well. And I think he did that extremely well. In addition to the old school footage of like that, like to me, kind of highlighting at the time a simpler time of just kind of enjoying life. And like the daughter was like involved in, you know, film, and she was very, you know, skilled with the camera more or less, and sending her family their own documentations, and she was out doing her own thing, and her mom was like, continue living your life, you know, don't let this affect your life, and was purposely not, you know, providing information. Even the daughter was like, I'm seeing what's on the news right now and no one's telling me anything.
Like, how are you not going to tell me?
Right. And she's like, no, yeah, your father was taken, he'll be back. And I think even resonated even more toward the end of the movie when they were adults. And he was like, when did you know? Like the two youngest children were together as adults, and they were going through old photos. It was like, so when did you know that he wasn't coming back? And like, because they were never told, obviously, anything. He just never showed back up again. And they were recounting their memory of when they realized that he was no longer coming back. And I just feel like that's interesting. It's just like, here's this unspoken thing that we're just not gonna to bring up, even though it's a big thing, but we're not gonna say exactly what happened. And throughout time, you would just realize what was going on. But as children, I guess that wasn't information you needed to know or understand at the time.
Yeah, but then it was interesting how each of them had their own take on it. Like the girl, she said, well, when we moved from the house, I knew that we were done. And the boy was like, well, that he held on hope a little bit further than that. It wasn't until she started donating all his clothes that she knew that he knew that he was gone.
Yeah. In a way, it was a very sad story, but it's also it was moving in a way of you're like, even the title, it says like, I'm still here. It's the same title as the book. It's like, here's a horrific event that happened, but here is the people who are still here to fight the good fight, you know, kind of hold on to the memory of that. And you saw that throughout the film. And also just extremely sad that later in life she went through Alzheimer's. And so that was highlighted at the end of the movie, and you can see her memory slipping, you know, at certain parts of it. And even the life that she was able to live, the life that she was able to provide for her children, and what they were able to grow up to be. And then you see how that family has grown into a new generation, and her memory is just slipping now. And it was kind of heartwarming to see a small memory maybe had sparked in her when she saw the news of like, here's the anniversary of what happened several years ago. And you see your husband on the screen, and like you can see that a little spark came into it, like she remembered it. But also she did a really good job throughout the movie also cataloging a lot of the events in these books, so to kind of preserve that memory of what, and it wasn't necessarily the bad stuff she was honing into. It was the good memories that she was kind of latching onto.
Yeah,
with the photos. And then like in a way, like I think, and then another film that they highlighted in there that I was reading an interview that she smiled when she received her husband's death certificate. And in a way, it was like, that's an odd thing to do, but for her, that was a sense of closure that they were looking for. Like, we now know that he is, like, if they were even still holding out hope, there's no reason to do that anymore because he had passed, you know, many years ago.
Yeah, and it's just like, we'll never see his body. This is the closest thing I'll get to seeing his body to actually be able to say goodbye.
Yeah, and to all that points, like, we as per usual, when we haven't seen a movie, we were questioning it's all right, what's this movie all about to now warrant a Best Picture nomination? And then you watch it and you're like, oh, I can see it now.
I got it now.
Yeah, the fact that, you know, it got Best Picture, Best International Feature, and Best Actress, it should have been there for Best Adapted Screenplay, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I think, I mean, she's winning the Golden Globe. We do have Demi Moore now taking the Best Actress. She is now the front runner for Best Actress because she took it at the critics. She took it at the Golden Globes for Best Comedy. And it really boils down to how the Screen Actors Guild will kind of award the winners here to see where she lands. But as of right now, Fernanda Torres as well as Demi Moore are now the two front runners going into the Best Actress category. And I think both of them have great legs to stand on for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
So like, I think either or would be a fine winner in that particular category, because Fernanda Torres she was the movie. And I think the book even highlighted it as well, that she was the unsung hero of, like, a lot of people were looking at to her husband as his war hero, and that's what the news was capitalizing on. But obviously her son knew that the real hero in this whole situation, and in addition to her husband, was how she handled that and what she did afterward.
Yeah.
And what she was able to do. And like, she never wanted the recognition. And obviously the book highlighted that, and the movie's highlighting that. And yeah, I just like how even the book was personal because it was written by the son. The movie feels personal because it was directed by a family friend. So like, a lot of love is going into this material, and I can appreciate it for that.
Same. Totally agree.
But yeah, final thoughts.
I thought it was a great film, incredibly moving. I love a movie that brings you situational awareness to real life events, and if they're able to pay homage or honor it in a way, and they were able to do that in the end when they show photos, like, I just feel like if you're going to talk about something that really happened, it just brings you closer into what actually happened. So this is once again another film that was able to do that effectively. I'm going to go 4.5. It's a great.
Yeah, I can meet you with 4.5. I was leaning to 4. But her performance is really what sells this movie for me.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And all the themes. A lot of the themes that were going into it. Well earned
Oscar nomination.
For sure. Honestly, for me, as the way that I see it, this film is, for me, the clear front runner for winning Best International Feature out of the ones that we've talked about so far, in addition to Emilia Perez. We haven't talked about Flow yet, which we'll get to in next week's episode, which is the last of the international films. But I think this film, because technically speaking, Emilia Perez is also a front runner, but this movie has way more to say and way more profound in the way it's being told than Emilia Perez does, as far as the two front runners going into this category.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's our spoiler review on I'm Still Here, in addition to Nickel Boys, in addition to The Seed of a Sacred Fig, in addition to The Girl with the Needle, and in addition to September 5, going over a lot of these major categories, kind of giving you an overview on some of the Oscar noms. And we're not done yet.
Oh no,
Ernesto.
No, we're not.
We're not. Tell the people next week, at least an overview of what we might be hitting. A couple of the categories we might be hitting next week.
I think we kind of just mentioned it. We're going to be going over the animated. So we're going to talk about Flow. Hold on. You put me on the spot here, Matthew. And
I'm sorry.
I wasn't ready. Animated feature. So we'll talk about Flow. We'll talk about Memoir of a Snail and Wallace and Gromit, and we'll, I guess, kind of give an overview of the other ones. And I believe we're gonna be done with the shorts. All the shorts we'll be done with. Are you?
Yeah.
Will you be ready? I think I'll be ready by then.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll play the shorts by air, and if we want to, let's see how we are for the rest of them. But definitely the three animated features that we have yet to discuss, Wild Robot and Inside Out 2, were films that we've already discussed in past episodes. Is the playlist already set up?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Playlist is already set up. So on YouTube, you can just hit that little playlist, or, to go back our previous episodes, you can just go to the search bar and search whatever movie you did, and that'll take you to our review for it.
There you go. And so we have that, and then so we're going to be finishing off the remainder of the animated feature categories. So I haven't seen all of them yet, so I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on the one that I have seen, as Wallace and Gromit, Revenge Most Foul.
Yes.
Yes, I think that was an interesting one to talk about. Memoirs of a Snail looks interesting, and obviously another big front runner is Flow which just hit Max over the weekend. So I'm very excited to kind of watch that one because a lot of people have been talking about it even before the Oscar nomination.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to talk about it. I actually just watched it last night with my two youngest children.
Oh, okay. So they were able to. Did they sit through the whole thing?
I guess you'll have to listen to next week's episode to find out.
Damn.
Ooh, look at that! Look at that tease!
Look at that tease! And also the plan is also to highlight and go over the documentary features as well, which I have one more to go. I believe you have two more to go.
Yes, I've got two. I got two left, and then I will be done with those.
Yeah, I have one more, and it's a 2.5 hour one. So strap in. But yeah, and then if I think if we have time, we'll start diving into some of the shorts. If not, we'll highlight the shorts in our overall predictions episode. And I think this is just, how it works out, serendipitous. I don't know how you want to say it, but either way, I think it's very fitting. It's very, I think it's fitting is a good word. That episode 250 will be our Oscars predictions episode. It just kind of aligned in for me very perfectly. It's one of the big episodes that we look forward to every year, and it's a nice even number of episode 250 that we're doing it on. So,
you are right. And then who knows what we're gonna do for the Oscars? I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. What we're gonna do?
No, we haven't. I mean, we definitely the next episode will be, which we typically do every year, is our Oscars recap episode, going over the winners, some of the highlights, as well as just a full recap of how that transpired and how the whole thing went down. In addition to the week prior will be our predictions episode. So yeah, the next 3 episodes from 249 to 251, still talking about the Oscars. Again, 252 most likely will be Captain America and all the nerd shit.
Yeah, it's gonna be a few weeks.
It's gonna be a few weeks till we get to that one. But we're in full Oscar mode right now. We really do appreciate you guys kind of listening along with us. And like I said, if you have any interest in the Oscars, we're trying to do it justice. We're trying to give it its due, give it its moments, and do things a little bit differently than we did last year. I know we typically save a lot of the Oscar talk for our predictions episode, but this time we kind of want to give its moment to particular categories as well as particular movies, just to highlight them, that when we get to the predictions episode, we're not kind of bogging down on us talking about the film in addition to giving our predictions and our favorites and all that stuff. So if we get that stuff kind of out of the way, then in theory, that we can streamline more of our predictions episode because we went on this journey together.
Yeah, exactly.
Within several episodes. But within all that, if you want more from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office_Bingers. The fun doesn't stop here. It continues on all of our social media channels. So be sure to follow all of them for all different types of goodies that you can find on all of those channels. In addition to our playlists for the Oscars can be found on our YouTube page.
Right.
But I thank each and every one of you for listening to us just talk about movies. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
And I've been Ernesto Santos. See ya.